Hi, art friends. Thank you so much for continuing on this online journey with me. This presentation is going to be about photography, and our inspiration will be Atlanta, Georgia. And this is a study in the principles of art, and I'm going to mention that a little bit as we go through our tour. So, the goals of the slideshow are as follows. These photos were taken to provide a quick visual overview and a tour of some of my favorite spots that I found while in Atlanta. And the subjects are the Beltline Walkway, Botanical Gardens, and the museum at Emory. I was so inspired by the way that the plants and garden elements created such unique works of art. So let's begin. So you'll take a look on the left-hand side. This is actually on the Beltline Walkway. And this really was a cool thing to see because there is so much nature there. Of course, you're in the city, but you're completely surrounded by nature as you're walking along there. And all of a sudden you happen upon these little obelisks. So they're like a miniature Washington monument, if you want to think of it that way, or almost a crystal shape. And they looked so beautiful. And there was a lot of contrast between the surrounding elements and these beautiful shapes. So I really wanted to capture that. And I also liked the shadows that were falling on the bottom corners of them. So I wanted to bring that to life as well. On the other side, you'll see a rendition of the Statue of Liberty using some 2x4s or some wooden pieces, and they're so brightly painted. And most of the botanical gardens have green things and green space. So this was a cool contrast in the way that it popped out of the background, especially with the bright colors. Now, these were two of my favorite statues that I encountered, and these were less contrast. In fact, these brought out more harmony or balance with the backgrounds, and they almost kind of blended in. And you'll see on the left-hand side, this beautiful fountain just kind of seamlessly blends into the background itself. And she did have this kind of dirt or soil hair that sometimes would bloom. So at the time I was there, it wasn't blooming anymore, but it still blended beautifully in. And I liked the combination of light and shadow that reflected onto this statue. And then on the right hand side, when you look at the butterfly, you can see the texture of the butterfly and you can see that cool pattern. And again, because of that softness of the color of that bronze, blends right in with the browns behind the trees and the shadows that are there also. Now, this was super fun. I liked going into this left-hand portion because there were a lot of things that you could grow for salads and everyday, food, lettuces, things like that. So that's what this whole wall was all about. And I loved the pattern and the effect that it had as you happen upon it and you could see the whole length of it. So there was a lot of harmony in this one because there's so many blends of greens and it was a beautiful space. And then on the right-hand side, I really liked the contrast of the light that's really shining towards the top of the indoor jungle and then the dark shadows that were underneath. You can also see some pretty neat patterns in those palm leaves. It's one of my favorite patterns, and I loved it combined with those beautiful lines, the vertical lines coming down. Now, this was a fun exhibit. It was unexpected when I got there, so I really enjoyed it when I got to see it. And it almost had the feeling of op art or illusions by the use of the lines, the forms, and the shapes, the patterns, as far as the polka dots and the hearts, as you can see, the checkerboard for the chess pieces, and those cool spirals that were underneath the Mad Hatter. So I tried to really harmonize and bring those all together in my photos. So it looked like one whole scene. Now, these were super fun. So we have one prehistoric creature and one fantastic creature. And you can see how, even though they both are using plants to create the bodies of the animals and the texture, they're used in different ways. The mammoth, the one on the left side, it really is more camouflage. He's blended in and he's balanced with the background and the environment. And then on the right hand side, the dragon has more contrast. He pops out. And the contrast of the different kinds of flowers that were used in his body helped to represent and like make our brain think that we're looking at scales. So I thought that was a really fun trick of the eye. Now, my last slide here was actually taken in a museum. And if you take a look, there was an Egyptian element, an Egyptian part of the museum. And I really enjoyed this mask because it had such amazing texture. And that was brought out by the combination of light and darkness. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, this artifact has a lot of harmony going on with the colors that are used and the patterns on the front of the body. So I thought that was a really beautiful thing to capture. And I wanted to just remember that moment because I loved the way that it looked and it had such an ancient quality as well. So I would just wanted to share that with you too. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope this inspires you to take a peek and maybe take some pictures if you ever get to a botanical garden or next time you're at the museum. Thanks for joining me.